Part 1. The great chamber of the Galactic Concord hung in silent orbit above Proxima Centauri, a glittering ring of polished alloy and glowing energy conduits that hummed with the weight of 1,000 species. Inside, beneath domes of reinforced crystal that showed the slow spin of distant stars, delegates from across the galaxy sat in tiered circles, their forms as varied as the worlds they represented. Some were tall and slender with skin like polished obsidian. Others hunched and scaled, their eyes flickering with cold intelligence. All of them shared one belief, that humanity was still a child among civilizations, loud, messy, and far too eager to reach for things it did not understand. At the center of the floor stood Daniel Carter. He was not tall, not imposing, and wore only a simple gray suit with the Earth insignia stitched over his heart, a blue circle wrapped in green. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture calm, though his heart beat faster than he would admit. He had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years, and in that time he had learned to read the silence of alien councils better than most diplomats twice his age. Today, that silence was heavier than usual. Corin Vex, the lead delegate of the Velnari, a species known for their rigid logic and disdain for emotional species, rose from his elevated seat. His long, segmented limbs clicked softly as he stepped forward, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "Ambassador Carter," he began, his tone dry and precise. "The Concord has observed your species' recent actions with growing concern." Daniel did not flinch. He simply nodded. "Your colony on Epsilon Eridani III was established without Concord approval," Corin continued. "You have deployed mining drones beyond your permitted sector. You have begun broadcasting unlicensed subspace signals toward neutral systems. These are not the acts of a cooperative member. They are the acts of a species testing boundaries it has no right to cross." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates shifted in their seats. Others watched Daniel with cold curiosity, as if waiting to see whether a human would finally snap under pressure. Daniel took a slow breath. "With respect," he said, his voice steady and clear, "Earth has followed every treaty signed with the Concord. The colony on Epsilon Eridani III was built on an unclaimed world. Our drones operate within the resource zones granted to us under the Third Accord. And our signal," he paused slightly, "are scientific in nature, shared openly with all who wish to listen." Corin's eyes narrowed. His species did not blink, but the slight tightening of the membranes around his pupils betrayed irritation. "Do not mistake our patience for weakness, Ambassador. The Concord has allowed your species to grow because we believed you would learn restraint. Instead, you grow bolder. You act as though you belong among the great powers, but you do not." The words hung in the air like ice. Daniel met Corin's gaze without flinching. "We never asked to be great," he said quietly. "We only asked to be free." Corin turned away as if the very sight of him was tiresome. "The Concord issues this final directive. Dismantle the Epsilon colony within 30 standard cycles. Cease all unauthorized expansion. Submit your communications logs for review. Fail to comply, and Earth will be placed under Level 3 quarantine. No ships in. No ships out. Your species will be isolated until you learn your place." The threat was clear. Level 3 quarantine had only been used twice in Concord history. Once against a warlike reptilian species that had nearly destroyed itself, and once against a hive mind that refused to recognize individual rights. Both had been broken within a decade. The message was not just about punishment, it was about shame. Daniel bowed his head slightly, a human gesture of acknowledgement that many aliens still found odd. "I will deliver your message," he said. He turned and walked out of the chamber alone, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. No one spoke as he left. No one offered him comfort. To them he was already a ghost, a representative of a species about to be put in its cage. Back aboard the Earth shuttle, Horizon, Daniel stared out the viewport as the ship pulled away from the Concord station. The stars outside were cold and distant, but his mind was burning. He thought of the farms on Mars, the children learning physics in Nairobi, the engineers in Jakarta who had spent their lives building faster engines not for war, but for exploration. He thought of President Lisa Morgan's last words to him before he left. "Don't beg. Just listen, and remember who we are." Now he knew. The shuttle docked at Lunar Station 7, 12 hours later. Daniel stepped onto the gray metal floor, still in his suit, still silent. A security officer nodded to him but said nothing. They had all seen the Concord broadcast. The ultimatum had been sent galaxy-wide, an example made of Earth. In the secure briefing room deep beneath the moon's surface, President Morgan waited. She was older now, her hair more silver than brown, but her eyes were sharp, alert. Around her sat the Unified Defense Council, generals, scientists, diplomats, all of them watching Daniel as he entered. "Well?" Lisa asked, her voice low. Daniel removed his jacket and sat. "They gave us 30 cycles to tear down our colony, or they lock us in." A general named Paul Ruiz leaned forward, his jaw tight. "They think we'll roll over." "They always have," said Maya Brooks, the council's top xenolinguist. She tapped a datapad. "I've been tracking Concord chatter for months. They talk about us like we're pets that learn to open the door. Annoying but harmless." Lisa looked at each of them in turn. "Are we harmless?" Silence. Then Nate Ruiz, Paul's younger brother and lead engineer of the Mars shipyards, spoke up. "We've got 12 new frigates ready in the belt. Fusion cores charged. Shields tested. They don't know about them. They think our biggest ship is still the old Vanguard." "And the Helios array?" Lisa asked. "Operational," Nate said. "We can focus enough solar energy to blind a fleet from 10 million kilometers out. Quiet, clean, no debris." Maya added, "Their command structure is centralized. One hub controls all patrol routes. If we hit it, their whole network stumbles." Lisa stood and walked to the window where Earth hung in the blackness, a swirl of blue and white, fragile and beautiful. "They've watched us for 200 years, she said. "They've blocked our tech, limited our trade, called us reckless every time we tried to reach further. They never saw us as equals, only as a problem to manage." She turned back to the room. "But we're not a problem. We're people, and people don't live in cages," no one argued. No one needed to. Orders were given that night. Not for surrender, not for retreat, for readiness. In hidden yards behind Jupiter's moons, welders sparked through the dark. On the far side of the moon, technicians ran final diagnostics on weapons that had never been fired in anger. In schools and labs and factories across Earth and its colonies, men and women went to work with a new purpose, not out of fear, but out of pride. Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck hours later, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. He thought of Corin Vex sitting in his perfect chamber, certain that humanity would obey. He smiled faintly. Let them think it. Let them all think it, right up until the moment Earth stopped asking and started acting. Part 2. While the Galactic Concord celebrated what they believed was Earth's quiet submission, humanity worked in silence. No grand announcements were made. No angry speeches echoed through the stars. Instead, in the cold dark between planets, in shielded tunnels beneath Martian ice and inside hollowed-out asteroids drifting near Jupiter, human hands built what words could not win. The Concord assumed Earth was dismantling its colony on Epsilon Eridani III. In truth, the colony was growing. New domes rose from the red soil, powered by compact fusion reactors designed by engineers in Buenos Aires. Food synthesizers hummed day and night, turning local minerals into protein-rich meals. Children played in pressurized courtyards under artificial suns, unaware that their home was considered illegal by beings they had never seen. The colony's leader, a calm woman named Lena Ortiz, sent weekly reports, not to the Concord but to Earth Command, detailing progress, morale, and readiness. She knew the truth. They were not building a settlement. They were building a statement. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden behind layers of radar-dampening rock, the shipyards never slept. Nate Ruiz oversaw the final assembly of the Ares-class frigates, sleek, fast vessels with hulls coated in adaptive nanoplating that could shift color and heat signature in seconds. Each ship carried railguns powered by magnetic coils spun from lunar iron, and missile pods loaded with smart warheads that could track targets through folded space. Most importantly, they ran on human-designed fusion pulse drives, smaller, hotter, and more efficient than anything the Concord had seen. The Concord believed human engines were noisy and slow. They were wrong. On Mars, beneath the rust-colored plains of Valle Marineris, the Helios array neared completion. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a network of thousands of mirrored satellites, each no larger than a shuttle, arranged in a precise orbit around the sun. Alone, they did nothing. Together, They could focus a beam of solar energy so intense it could melt sensor arrays or disable power grids from millions of kilometers away. The project had begun as a clean energy initiative. Now it served a darker purpose. Engineers led by a quiet man named Chris Dawson calibrated the mirrors with painstaking care, testing alignment on abandoned Concord drones that drifted too close. Each test was a whisper. Soon they would shout. Back on Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Maya Brooks and her team listened. They did not hack the Concord's systems, that would be too obvious. Instead, they studied patterns. Every patrol route, every supply shipment, every diplomatic transmission carried rhythms, habits, weaknesses. The Concord was vast, but it was also predictable. Their fleets moved in synchronized waves, always returning to central hubs for refuel and data sync. Their command structure relied on a single Nexus station near Cygnus Prime, the beacon of unity. It was more symbol than fortress, but it controlled nearly all non-military Concord traffic. If it fell silent, confusion would spread faster than any virus. Maya mapped it all on a glowing table in the war room. They think we're emotional, she told President Morgan during a late-night briefing. So they assume we'll act rashly, attack a warship, declare war, make noise. But we won't. We'll hit where they feel safest, where they never expect danger. Lisa Morgan nodded. She had aged more in the past month than in the past year. The weight of what they were about to do pressed on her like gravity. But she did not waver. We're not starting a war, she said. We're ending a lie. Meanwhile, training intensified. Pilots from New Delhi to Vancouver drilled in simulators that recreated Concord fleet formations. Marines practiced zero-gravity boarding tactics on derelict freighters. Cyber teams ran mock invasions on dummy networks, learning how to slip past alien firewalls without leaving a trace. What surprised even Earth's own commanders was how quickly humans adapted. They did not follow rigid doctrine. They improvised. They used chaos as a tool. A pilot might fake engine failure to lure an enemy closer. A hacker might flood a system with fake data until real commands slipped through unnoticed. The Concord valued order. Humanity thrived in the gaps between it. Daniel Carter, now stationed at Lunar Command, reviewed every plan. He no longer wore a diplomat's suit. He wore a uniform, simple and dark, with no rank insignia. His role had changed. He was no longer Earth's voice to the galaxy. He was its shield. The Concord, meanwhile, grew complacent. Reports from their observers claimed Earth's orbital traffic had decreased. No new ships launched. No signals broadcast beyond the Sol system. Corin Vex declared the matter closed in a private council session. The humans have learned, he said. They understand their limits. He did not know that the quiet was not surrender. It was preparation. 30 cycles passed. The deadline came and went. The Concord waited for Earth's confirmation of colony dismantlement. None came. Instead, a routine supply ship sent to Epsilon Eridani III found the colony not only intact but expanded, its defenses upgraded, its people standing tall. The ship's captain, a nervous insectoid from the Kilari Collective, radioed back in alarm. But before the message could reach Concord High Command, it was intercepted by a human listening post near Neptune and erased. Earth had gone dark, not in fear, but in strategy. In the final days before action, President Morgan gathered her closest advisors one last time. No speeches, no grand declarations, just a single question. Are we ready? Nate Ruiz checked his tablet. Fleet is green, all 12 frigates fueled and armed. Chris Dawson added, Helios array synced. Target lock confirmed. Maya Brooks looked up from her screen. Beacon of Unity is running on standard protocol. No extra guards. No alerts. Lisa Morgan stood. Then we moved tonight. That evening, under the cover of a solar flare that masked energy signatures, the first human strike force slipped out of the asteroid belt. 12 ships black as void, engines throttled to near silence. They did not head for a military target. They did not seek battle. Their destination was symbolic, precise, and devastatingly simple. The Beacon of Unity. As they vanished into folded space, Earth held its breath. Not in fear. In focus. The galaxy had spent centuries underestimating humanity, its patience, its ingenuity, its will. Soon they would learn the cost of that mistake, and it would begin not with a scream, but with a single silent strike against the heart of everything the Conquered believed they controlled. Starbound, the beacon of unity, hung in orbit above Cygnus Prime like a silver needle stitched into the stars. It was not a weapon. It was not a fortress. It was a symbol, a towering spire of polished alloy and glowing data conduits that linked every Concord member through a single, seamless network. Messages, trade logs, diplomatic records, even cultural broadcasts flowed through it. To damage the beacon was not an act of war. It was an act of defiance against the very idea of Concord control, and that was exactly why Earth chose it. At 03:17 Standard Time, 12 human frigates dropped out of folded space just beyond the beacon's sensor range. No alarm sounded. No patrols stirred. The Concord had grown so certain of their dominance that they left their symbolic heart nearly unguarded. The frigates moved like shadows, their engines throttled to near silence, their hulls darkened by adaptive nano-coating that absorbed starlight instead of reflecting it. On the bridge of the lead ship, the Valkyrie, Captain Chris Dawson watched the beacon grow larger on his screen. His hands rested lightly on the controls, calm despite the weight of what they were about to do. Beside him, Weapons Officer Lena Ortiz confirmed targeting. Kinetic rods loaded. EMP charges armed. Helios link active. Good, Chris said. Remember, precision, not destruction. We're sending a message, not starting a massacre. He gave the order. From the belly of each frigate, slender rods of tungsten, cold, dense and moving at a fraction of light speed, shot forward. They carried no explosives. They didn't need any. At that velocity, impact alone would punch through shielding like paper. Simultaneously, the Helios array, millions of kilometers away near Sol, focused a narrow beam of solar energy onto the beacon's primary sensor cluster. For 3 seconds, the spire's outer shell glowed white-hot, then went dark. The kinetic rod struck a heartbeat later. There was no explosion, only a series of sharp, silent impacts as the rods pierced the beacon's communication hubs, navigation relays, and power regulators. Inside the spire, lights flickered and died. Data streams froze. Alarms blared in a dozen alien tongues, but no one could respond, because the EMP pulse that followed fried every unshielded circuit in the structure. Within 90 seconds, the beacon of unity was blind, deaf, and mute. On Cygnus Prime below, diplomats and traders stared up at the sky in confusion. The great spire, which had glowed with soft blue light for over 2 centuries, now hung dark and still. Panic spread through the city like wildfire. Concord officials scrambled to restore contact. Emergency channels filled with frantic voices. No one knew what had happened. No one even knew who had done it. Back aboard the Valkyrie, Chris gave a single command. Pull back. Clean exit. The frigates turned as one and vanished back into folded space before the first Concord patrol could arrive. They left no debris, no wreckage, no bodies, just silence. The news spread faster than any ship could fly. Within hours, every major system in the galaxy knew Earth had struck the beacon, not with brute force but with surgical precision, and they had done it without killing a single soul. In the Concord High Chamber, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted over one another, their translators struggling to keep up. Some demanded immediate retaliation, others called for emergency summits. Corin Vex stood rigid at his podium, his segmented face unreadable, but his hands trembled slightly, a rare sign of emotion among his kind. This is an act of war, he declared, his voice sharp enough to cut metal, but others disagreed. A delegate from the gentle plant-like Thalari species rose slowly. War against whom? Earth fired no weapons at our people. They disabled a machine, a symbol. Perhaps they are telling us something. Corin turned on him. They are telling us they are reckless, unstable, they must be contained. Yet doubt had taken root. For the first time, some Concord members questioned whether humanity was truly the chaotic child they had always believed. This attack had been too clean, too smart, too controlled. While the Concord argued, Earth remained silent. No broadcasts, no claims of victory, no taunts. It was as if the strike had never happened, except for the dark spire hanging above Cygnus Prime, a silent rebuke to centuries of arrogance. Then 3 days later, Daniel Carter returned. He arrived alone in a small diplomatic shuttle, docking at the Concord station without fanfare. When he stepped into the chamber, every eye turned to him, some with anger, some with fear, a few with something new, curiosity. Corin Vex rose immediately. You dare show your face here after what your people have done? Daniel walked to the center of the floor just as he had weeks before. But this time, he did not stand with hands clasped behind his back. He stood tall, shoulders square, eyes steady. "I am here," he said, "because Earth has nothing to hide." Gasps rippled through the chamber. "You admit your crime?" Corin demanded. "I admit our action," Daniel corrected. "Not a crime. A correction. For 200 years, the Conquered has treated Earth as less than equal. You blocked our growth. You mocked our efforts. You gave us rules no other species had to follow. And when we built something of our own, you threatened to lock us away like misbehaving children." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We did not destroy your beacon to hurt you. We disabled it to show you something. We can reach your heart. And we chose not to break it. That was mercy, not weakness." Silence fell so deep that the hum of the station's life support seemed loud. Corin's voice was low now. Dangerous. "What do you want?" Daniel looked around at the gathered species, not with anger but with calm resolve. "We want what every civilization deserves. A seat at the table. Not as petitioners. Not as subjects, as equals. Earth will no longer ask for permission to exist. We are here. We are capable. And we will defend what is ours." He turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. The colony on Epsilon Eridani III remains, and it is growing." He walked out without another word. Behind him, the chamber did not erupt in outrage. It sat in stunned silence. Even Corin Vex did not speak. For the first time, the Conquered realized they had misjudged humanity, not as a loud, emotional species, but as something far more dangerous, a patient one. And patience, when it ends, strikes with perfect aim. Across the galaxy, whispers began, not of fear but of respect. Earth had not begged. They had acted. And in doing so, they had changed everything. The Conquered still held power, but its grip had cracked. And through that crack, a new future began to shine. Bartformir. The Conquered did not wait long to respond. Within 10 cycles of Daniel Carter's defiant speech, a punitive fleet gathered at the edge of Sol system. 6 heavy cruisers, 2 command carriers, and a dozen escort vessels, painted in the sharp silver and crimson of Conquered enforcement, formed a wall of metal and firepower that dwarfed anything Earth had ever built. Their message was clear. Humanity's boldness would be crushed before it could spread. Corin Vex had personally approved the mission. "Let them see the true face of order," he told the fleet commander, a stern reptilian admiral named Zorak Ven. "Burn their ships, silence their stations, leave their colonies trembling. Then they will understand." But Earth was ready. Hidden deep in the Oort cloud far beyond Pluto's frozen orbit, human sensors tracked the fleet's approach. Maya Brooks and her team had studied Concord tactics for years. They knew Zorak Ven favored tight formations, relying on overlapping shield grids and centralized command signals. They also knew his one weakness. He never expected the enemy to strike first. As the Concord fleet crossed the outer boundary of the solar system, the Helios array activated again. This time it did not target a station. It targeted space itself. A focused beam of solar energy superheated a patch of empty void just ahead of the lead cruiser. The sudden plasma bloom blinded their long-range scanners for 12 critical seconds. In that blind moment, 12 human frigates emerged, not from one direction but from 6, using gravitational slingshots around distant ice dwarfs to mask their approach. They fired no missiles. Instead, they launched clouds of microdrones, tiny self-guided devices designed not to explode, but to latch onto enemy hulls and jam communications. Chaos erupted in the Conquered formation. Ships lost contact with command. Shield harmonics destabilized. Zorak Ven barked orders, but his voice reached only half his fleet. Then came the real strike. From the darkness near Sedna, a human stealth corvette, smaller than a shuttle, coated in light-bending film, slipped between the cruisers. On board, pilot Chris Dawson guided it with steady hands. His target was the command carrier's navigation core, a delicate sphere of quantum processors buried deep in the ship's spine. One precise shot from a railgun, fired at point-blank range, and the carrier went dark. Without its command hub, the fleet fractured. Some ships turned to engage the frigates. Others tried to retreat. A few fired blindly into the void, their shots missing by thousands of kilometers. Earth's forces did not press the advantage. They vanished as quickly as they appeared, leaving the conquered fleet broken and confused in the outer dark. Back on Earth, there was no celebration. President Lisa Morgan watched the battle feed from Lunar Command, her face unreadable. "We showed them we can fight," she said. "Now we show them we can think." While the Concorde regrouped in shame, Earth launched its next move, not with weapons, but with words. A public broadcast sent on every open frequency the galaxy used carried President Morgan's voice to every inhabited world. She stood in a simple room, no flags, no symbols, just her and the truth. "We do not seek war," she said. "We seek balance. For too long, the conquered has decided who deserves a voice and who does not. We offer a new path. Open trade, shared science, mutual defense against real threats like the void swarms beyond Andromeda or the energy parasites near the galactic rim. Earth will not dominate, but we will not be dominated." The message spread like fire through dry grass. Smaller species, those long ignored by the conquered, listened with hope. The Kilari traders, the moss-skinned Thalari, even the nomadic Virel clans who lived on drifting ice worlds, none of them had ever been consulted about galactic policy. Now for the first time someone spoke for them. On Cygnus Prime, protests broke out, not against Earth but against the Concorde's secrecy. "Why did they hide the Helios array?" one Thalari elder asked during a public forum. "Why did they never tell us humans could build such things?" Others demanded to see the full logs of the beacon strike. When the Concorde refused, trust eroded further. Corin Vex tried to hold the alliance together. He called emergency sessions, accused Earth of deception, and pushed for total blockade. But this time his voice did not command the room. Delegates from 3 systems abstained from voting. 2 openly sided with Earth's call for reform. Meanwhile, Earth's cyber teams worked quietly. Using access codes stolen during the beacon strike, they rerouted Concorde supply ships carrying food and medicine to neutral worlds. They leaked internal memos showing how the Conquered had suppressed alien technologies that threatened their control. Each revelation chipped away at the illusion of unity. In the asteroid belt, Nate Ruiz oversaw the launch of 6 new frigates, faster, smarter, built with lessons from the first battle. On Mars, engineers upgraded the Helios array to target multiple points at once. And in schools across Earth, children learned not just math and history, but diplomacy and ethics. Humanity was preparing for peace as fiercely as it had prepared for war. The turning point came when the Virel, clans, nomads who roamed the galactic rim in massive ice ships sent a message to Earth. "We have watched," it read. "You fight not for conquest, but for dignity. We stand with you." It was only one voice, but it was the first. Then came the Kilari, then the Thalari, then a dozen smaller groups tired of being told what to do by a council that never asked their opinion. Corin Vex stood alone in the high chamber one night, staring at the stars. For the first time, he wondered if the Concorde had been wrong, not just about Earth, but about everything. Order without fairness was not peace. It was control. And control, he now saw, could be broken by a single act of courage. Earth had not won with guns. They had won with truth, and that was a weapon the Concorde had never learned to defend against. Part 5. The final battle did not begin with a declaration. It began with silence. The Concorde's last loyalist fleet, led once more by Admiral Zorak Ven and backed by Corin Vex's full authority, gathered near the ruins of the Beacon of Unity. Their orders were simple. End Earth's defiance once and for all. Destroy their fleet, seize their colonies, erase their voice from the stars. But as their ships powered up, they found they were not alone. From the shadow of Cygnus Prime's moon, a dozen small vessels emerged, Kilari freighters retrofitted with shield emitters. From the asteroid fields to the north, Thalari seed ships glowed with bioluminescent armor, their hulls grown, not built. Even the Virel ice ships drifted into position, their ancient engines humming with borrowed human tech. They carried no weapons of their own, but they carried something more powerful: choice. They had chosen to stand with Earth. Zorak Ven stared at the incoming signals in disbelief. "They are not warriors," he growled to his first officer. "They are farmers, traders, nomads. Then why do they stand?" The officer replied. The answer came fast. Earth's fleet dropped out of folded space not in front of the conquered line, but behind it, cutting off their retreat. 12 frigates, now joined by 6 newer models, formed a loose arc. At their center flew the Valkyrie, Chris Dawson at the helm, calm as ever. No one fired first. Instead, a single message broadcast across all channels, not from Earth, but from the Kilari Elder, her voice soft but firm. This ends now, not with more blood, with truth. Corin Vex, watching from the Concord command station, felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. The galaxy was fracturing, and it was not Earth that broke it. It was the Concord's own pride. Zorak Ven, however, would not yield. "Fire!" he commanded. His lead cruiser unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes. But before they could reach their targets, the Thalari ships released clouds of spore dust, harmless to life, deadly to sensors. The torpedoes veered off course, exploding in empty space. At the same time, Virel ice ships projected gravity lenses that bent light and warped targeting systems. The Concord fleet, once so precise, now fired blindly. Earth's response was swift but measured. Railgun slugs disabled engine clusters. EMP pulses knocked out comms. No ships were destroyed. No lives were taken. But one by one, the conquered vessels lost power, drifted and fell silent. Within an hour, only Zorak Ven's flagship remained active, surrounded, outmaneuvered and alone, aboard the Valkyrie. Chris opened a direct channel. "Admiral, stand down. No one else has to die." Zorak hesitated. His species valued honor above all. Surrender was unthinkable. But as he looked at his crippled fleet, at the strange alliance of small species standing firm beside humans, he saw something new. Unity not forced by law, but chosen by will. He powered down his weapons. On the Concord command station, Corin Vex watched it all unfold. He said nothing. He simply turned off his screen and walked away. 3 days later, representatives from over 30 systems gathered on Luna, not in a war room, but in a newly built hall of glass and steel, open to the sky. Earth had insisted on it. No domes, no barriers, just people under the same stars. President Lisa Morgan stood at the center, flanked by Daniel Carter, Maya Brooks, and leaders from the Kilari, Thalari, and Virel. Before them sat the remains of the Concord Council, Corin Vex among them. His posture stiff, his eyes weary. Lisa spoke without notes. "We did not fight to replace you. We fought to join you as equals, not because we are stronger, but because we believe fairness is the only foundation that lasts." She laid out the terms. The Concord would be restructured. No single species would hold veto power. All members, old and new, would have equal voice. Military enforcement would be replaced by joint defense. And Earth's colonies, technologies, and broadcasts would be recognized as lawful and free. Corin Vex did not argue. He simply nodded. It was not surrender. It was acceptance. The signing took less than an hour. One by one, species placed their marks, some with ink, some with light, some with living spores that glowed upon contact. When it was done, the new alliance had no grand name. They called it simply the Accord. That night, on a quiet hill outside Nairobi, a young girl named Amina lay on the grass with her grandfather. Above them, the sky shimmered with satellites, not conquered beacons, but shared stations built by human and alien hands together. "Are we safe now, Papa?" she asked. He smiled. "Safer than before, but safety isn't given. It's built. And today we all started building it together." Far above on Lunar Station 7, Daniel Carter watched Earth rise over the horizon. The same view as before, but everything had changed. The galaxy had expected humanity to beg for a place among the stars. Instead, they earned it not with rage but with resolve, not with conquest but with courage. And in that moment, as ships from a dozen worlds exchanged greetings in 100 languages, the universe grew a little kinder, a little fairer, and a little more human.